Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for returning from the break to see my presentation. My name is Tal, and before I start my official presentation, I'd like to start with a personal story. I'm blessed with 3 kids. Jonathan is the oldest, he's 6-year-old. And these are Guy and Daniela, boy and girl twins. The picture was taken just 4 days after they were born when we took them from the hospital back home. And I don't know if you have any experience, but raising twins is difficult, doesn't even describe how hard it is to raise twins. And we didn't sleep, me and my wife, for 2 years because they're crying the whole night. And the only thing that we wished for is to have some sort of a magic pill that will turn them straight into 3-year-olds, because we knew how an adult behaves and how well he communicates. But unfortunately, there's no such a pill. Today they are, I took this picture just before I arrived here. They're 3-year-old, they sleep, we sleep, everything is okay. The message I'm trying to tell you in this personal story is similar like raising kids. In innovation, there is no magic pill. You have to invest a lot of time and effort in innovation and not try to rush it. So, my name is Tal Atzmon. I came to here from Israel. As Alexander said, it's my first time in Russia. I'm a passionate product guy. I worked for lots of startups and enterprises, companies in Israel. I lecture about lean startup, entrepreneurship, and I also mentor early stage startups. In the past 2 years, I had the opportunity to work in a very special place. That was the HP Software Innovation Program. And I'm here to tell you about my experience in innovation. More specifically, I'm going to talk about the challenges that you're going to face in your company when you try to innovate and how to overcome these challenges. And I will give an example how we built the innovation team in HP Software. So the first challenge you are going to face when you try to innovate in large organizations is that organizations are killing innovation by definition. It sounds strange, right? Because leaders are talking about innovation and how important it is to innovate, but it's true. And that's because the way organizations have evolved over the years. The best way to explain it is with the beehive analogy. So imagine a beehive. For 60 or 70 million years, bees have evolved to become an efficient honey producer. Every bee in the beehive has a very specific job. The queen, the female, the workers, the male bees. So imagine that one day, a bee says, hey, you know, we have this great technology to convert nectar into honey. Why won't you use this technology to do something else? Right? Let's produce sugar cubes. What do you think is going to happen? Everybody's going to think that this bee is crazy. Bees can do only one thing and one thing good. And this is exactly what happens in large organizations. Large organizations have evolved and have optimized to do something in the most efficient way. In the context of this conference, software companies have optimized to sell a specific software to specific customers through a very specific channel. So when one of the employees in the organization says, let's do something else, let's use our technology and innovate in other markets, the entire organization starts working against that employee, against that idea. Not because they're mean, not because they're stupid, but because in large organizations, employees act according to the way they are measured. And in large organizations, employees are measured on resource efficiency, right? So the first challenge, the second challenge, that you're going to see when you try to innovate in large organizations is that leaders are looking for shortcuts to innovation. Leaders realize that if they will not look into the future, Horizon 2 and 3, and find the next big thing, the next rising star for the company is going to die in 10 years. So this pressure forces them to look for shortcuts in innovation. And you cannot look for shortcuts in innovation. Innovation is something that you must do with patience. You must be patient and must do it slowly. The first shortcut that leaders typically take in large organizations is the innovation events. A leader may think that his company, for some reason, is not creative enough. So he's looking for ways to wake the creativity gene in his workforce. So someone in the company organizes an innovation event, a hackathon, lots of beers, lots of food. It's a great day in the company. Brave men and women volunteer to present their idea in front of the company, and then a committee selects the best idea. Now the question is, what happens the next day? Typically, besides of fame and glory, nothing. And not because the ideas are not good, but because the ideas have nowhere to go to. There is no single place in the company that can hold these ideas and help them grow. So having innovation events like hackathon is great, but the first thing organizations need is a credible innovation platform that can help the ideas grow. The second shortcut is that leaders think that innovation must be massive, must be a breakthrough. This requirement will usually come when one of the leaders is looking at the state of the company and says, we have to innovate now, it must be something big, think of something and come back to me with your ideas. And in a large organization, when an executive is asking you to do something, of course everybody's working hard to provide answers. So the result is a collection, small collection, of big ideas that are actually very big bets. Why? Think about your own company. Think about very successful startups that you know. How long did it take them to reach from nothing to their peak? Typically it takes 5 years if they are lucky. How many organizations do you know will have the patience to invest year over year in a big innovation that sometime in the future maybe it will succeed? There are not many companies that are Google or Apple. So betting on big bets is a very high risk. The way to a successful innovation is not to think of a very big thing you should innovate, but to focus on very low cost and small experiments you can do. The third shortcut leaders think is that innovation must be an invention. If their company is going to innovate, it must be something new, something unique, something that no one has before. So again, think about your workforce in your company. How many employees in your company do you think that can really invent something new, make something with a new technology? It's typically a very small group of people. So if you isolate this group of people and let them innovate, you immediately reduce the amount of new ideas that can be introduced in your company, because only a small group of employees do the innovation. And trust me, diversity is a great thing for innovation. Some of the great projects that I saw at HP didn't come from brilliant engineers. They actually came from salespeople who are out there in the field, meeting customers, understand their problems, and suddenly they had an idea of and innovation projects they wanted to promote. So every employee should innovate, not only a small group of people in your company. Okay, so by now I told you only what you shouldn't do with innovation. What I do now is, let's talk about what you should do. More specifically, let's start with, I mentioned that innovation and invention and events and massive innovation are typical, can be triggers for innovation, but if you focus only on that, it's a huge risk for your company. So first of all, what are low-risk innovations? Low-risk innovation can be, for example, leveraging an existing technology that you have in your company and applying it on a different product, or upselling to your existing customers a new feature. An example that I can give you from HP Software is a project, a big data project that we had in the innovation. It was called Smart Analytics for a product that's called Service Manager. Service Manager is a legacy product at HP. I think it's a 30-year-old product for enterprises which manages the support tickets. In 2012, HP acquired a big data company called Autonomy from UK, and the innovation was, let's take the technology, the big data technology that we now have, and try to apply it on Service Manager. Let's try to give our customers more value. And it turned out to be a very good success because it caused customers to retain. Customers didn't leave the product for other products. Customers renewed their license, and they saw great value, so they continued to use the product, and we got the good feedback from customers. Another thing that you can do as a low-risk innovation is to apply your know-how to new markets. And again, an example from HP is the Wind Park project. HP has great know-how on how to manage IT. It has a big application to manage IT assets, IT servers. So one of the innovation was, let's take this know-how and apply it into a new market that didn't have such a management, and that was the wind farms, which produce renewable energy. And again, this was a great success. So let me now tell you how we did it. How we built an innovation machine at HP Software, while we focus on the three elements that I mentioned. You should have a credible innovation platform, you should make low-cost experiments, and every employee in the company should innovate. So basically what we did, and I will first review it quite fast, we built an innovation funnel that has few stages. The first stage is the ideation. This is where you collect your ideas from your employees. We had an online forum. Every employee in the company could raise an idea of a new project, a new feature that he wanted to promote it, he wanted to innovate in. During a period of 3 months, we called it cycle, a period of 3 months, there was a discussion in the forum about the ideas. Employees gave feedback one another. And more importantly, employees voted for the ideas that they thought are worth moving to the next stage. The next stage, the incubation stage, is where we still don't build anything, we validate. We validate problem-solution fit. It means that we speak with customers and make sure that the idea that we had is something that is worth building. At this stage, employees are getting 10% of the time to work on the innovation. It's half a day a week. And they prepare themselves to pitch the idea to the Innovation Council that's going to happen at the end of the incubation. Teams that move to the next stage, to the seed stage, this is a funded stage. This is where they don't get actual money, but they get more time to work on their project. This is where teams will focus on product market fit. Again, they still didn't build the real product, but they built a small prototype just to make sure that the solution they wanted to provide to customers is something that the customers were expecting. And lastly, the growth, the successful seed projects were handed over to the respective business unit who took it and applied it into the product line. So basically what we built here is a lean experimentation funnel. We take a lot of projects and try to reduce the risk. And doing low-cost experiments at the beginning, and then as the projects progress, we focus on high-cost experiments, like building something only on a handful of projects. Now, this thing takes management in order to handle. You can't just build a forum and expect everyone in the company remember that there's such a forum and, okay, we'll see you back in 3 months after you have something. No, it doesn't work like that. It needs a lot of attention. In order to manage it properly, you have to treat your innovation funnel like any product that you manage. So first of all, you have to set up some goals, right? You have to be aggressive but realistic. How many projects do you think you want to see at the end of this funnel? 1 project a year, 2 projects a year, and then go backward and try to understand what does it mean in your company. It depends on the company size. How many ideas would you need in order to reach that goal? Specifically for the ideation, like any other product, this is where you do the marketing. The ideas are your customers. You want to capture as many ideas as you can. So the first thing you want to do is to send systematic emails. Every 3 months when a new cycle opens, send an email to the entire company telling them a new cycle opened, come to the website, submit your ideas. And you should do the same just before the cycle ends. So a week or a few days before the cycle ends. And when we looked at the metrics, we saw that the emails made a great impact. Right after the email was sent, there was a huge peak in votes and comments in the website. Another thing you want to do is to make a targeted email. For example, we noticed that employees who didn't submit an idea, but commented or upvoted in previous cycles, were more likely to suggest a new idea in following cycles. So we segmented those employees and sent a very specific email to them, like you do in any other marketing campaign, and it worked. It showed the great results. Another thing you want to do is to review the results. When you get to a stage that you get hundreds of ideas, some of them are not aligned with your company business. I mean, if you are in IT business and you have ideas about e-commerce, maybe it's a good idea, but eventually this is not something that your company can make. Your company will not change suddenly a focus. So you want to make sure that the ideas are good and align with your company business. Now that you have such a funnel, you can definitely organize events because the ideas have where to go to. And you want to also manage sort of gamification. Give your employees some motivation to submit ideas or to vote. We used points like frequent flyer. So when you submit idea, you get high points. If you vote or comment, you get lower points. And then specifically for HP, if you have enough points, you can purchase gadgets. So you can do the same in your company. In the incubation stage, this is a very tight program, 16 weeks, where first we have to provide some training. Remember that we're talking about engineers who don't have experience in lean startup or even never spoke with customers before in their life. So we provide some training. What is the meaning of lean startup? Why you should validate and not rush to develop? And also how to interview customers. The success criteria in the incubation stage is the teams have to provide at least 3 positive feedbacks from customers that the problem is real and they're looking for such a solution. And also, they have to show that there is a feasible go-to-market. We don't expect a market research, but at least to have an understanding that if this idea goes to market, there is someone in our company that can take it to the market. It's like the example I gave before with e-commerce. And then we also prepare them for the pitch to the council. The council happens at this point. Specifically for HP, the council members were VPs, very senior people in HP. These people are very busy. It's really hard to even to schedule a meeting with a VP in such a large organization. But they showed up to the meeting, first of all, to show their commitment to the innovation program, because they saw that it's important. Another reason, for them, it was a great opportunity to hear new ideas that they wouldn't have an opportunity to hear elsewhere. And since the ideas went through some filtering mechanism, where the teams have done some validation, so we actually reduced a little bit the risk in this project, and an executive could make a decision if he wants to move forward or not. He wouldn't be able to do it if the idea was in the ideation. It was premature. For the employees themselves, pitching in front of VPs in such a large organization gives them great visibility. In such a big organization, you don't meet a VP on a daily basis. So if you have a great idea and you get a good feedback from a VP, that's kudos for you. In the seed stage, this is where the teams are getting some R&D resources and some UX resources in order to build an MVP. This is a great opportunity to test your idea. And of course, teams pivot a lot. They try something, it doesn't work, they change according to the feedback and test again with customers. And this is also the place where they get executive mentorship. The same VP, for example, in HP software, there's someone who manages the security division. So he becomes the mentor of a security incubation project. The idea is that if this project at the end is going to become a product in his division, he wants to follow the progress and also give feedback to the team, which makes sense. And during the growth, at this point, the innovation team has no control over the product, but we still want to provide some guidance as the project progresses, making sure that the teams are focusing on value and not on features. These are some of the numbers, the past 2 years' results. As you see, we had 600 ideas in the ideation, ended up with 11 projects that become either a new feature or a product. Now, if you ask me if these numbers are good, I don't know. I guess you can always optimize, and there are many reasons why projects fail along the way. So you can always optimize and improve the numbers. But I would like not to look at the growth, but look at incubation. Look at the 110 projects. These are projects that went through filtering, and someone in the company, the innovation team, the employees, thought that this project is good and is worth to be something that customers want. But thanks to this process, when the teams went out and spoke with customers, they realized that maybe the idea is good, but if the company develops that, nobody will use it. So this process helped the company eliminate 90 projects that if, like in standard organizations, employees would rush to develop, they eliminated that, and we ended up with 11 successful projects. So I think that this is the most significant. And of course, it took the company 5 years to reach the point that it had such a optimized funnel, and it requires quite management. It began with 3 employees, and at the peak, there's a head of innovation and someone who manages the incubation stage. He also manages another 2 employees. There's a Marcom who does all the marketing, a designer that gives design help for the teams, a product manager who manages the project and the finance of the innovation, and also developers. In case the innovation comes from salespeople who don't have any development experience, so the developers in the team are the ones who are going to build that project for him. Okay, so I told you a beautiful story, right, about how we build it. Yes, bravo to me. But the question is, okay, he told us nice thing. I will leave in a few minutes. What am I going to do with all this information? So my last message to you is, what should be one thing that you can do today in your company in order to start innovating, start helping your company innovate? So let's try to find the core of innovation. We have the ideation. It will be hard because you have to ask all the employees to submit ideas. It's going to be very hard at the beginning, so it's not that. Seed is the funded stage. The VPs in your company will not give you money yet, and you're not in growth stage. So it leaves us with incubation. If you want to successfully innovate, you have to focus on the low-cost experiments. Find a project, find a problem your customers have, and show your managers that you can validate that the problem is real, and when you provide the customer a small solution, he provides you a good feedback. If you show it to your managers, I guarantee they will appreciate your efforts, and they would like to have at least a pilot of such a program in your organization. I don't know if there are any I guess most of you are developers or have a development experience. Being a developer is a gift. You have a very gifted talent to build something with your own hands. So my message is, build it wisely. Focus on small thing and don't focus on building a platform. Thank you very much.
Tal, thank you very much. I have a question. What if the idea reaches the growth phase and then it fails not because the idea was bad, was not so good, and the market was bad, but the idea fails because of the team and the managers that was developing this idea? What do you do with this idea? Do you give it to another team, or you just forget it? Thank you.
You mean once the idea moved to the business unit?
Yeah, in the growth phase. What if the idea goes to the growth phase, the people work for a year or 2, and they get $1 million, and you want 1 billion. And you realize that the problem is not in the market, but in the team and the manager. Do you try to make this idea with another team, or do you just kill the idea by itself?
Okay, I can't think of a specific example in my company, but it is a possible situation. And again, once the idea moves to the business unit, the innovation doesn't have any control on that. And this is why I mentioned that even though it moves to the business unit, we still provided some guidance to make sure that the team is focused, because we are familiar and we have a great know-how on lean startup. So we want to make sure that the business unit, the product managers who manage the real product, let's call it real product, is focusing on value. Of course, if the product manager rejects and doesn't want to hear our advice, there's nothing we can do. And if the project fails, again, there's nothing we can do. One thing that I didn't mention is, unlike accelerators or startups that you're familiar with, the team who innovated is not necessarily the team who will build the actual product. Because in some cases, there are salespeople who have an innovation idea. You don't expect them to not become salespeople anymore and develop the product. So the flow is that at that point, the teams are no longer the owners. They have all the credit for bringing it to the company, but the developers who are responsible to the business unit, they take over the idea.
Another questions?
Thank you for your report. In the beginning of your speech, you mentioned large companies. How can you say that company is large? I mean, number of employees or amount of money that company earns?
Okay. Of course, large is term and very vague. It's a good question. When I say large, I mean a startup, or if you think of a Slack, for example, they are quite big, or Uber, they are a big company, but they are very young relatively in the market. So maybe they still have the spirit of a startup. They know how to work agile and lean. What I mean by large is companies like HP Software that are many years in the market. They're doing stuff, let's call it the old way. They're not that agile, and they are very stagnostic, right? It's very difficult for such a company to hear even the concept of innovation. Like I mentioned, they immediately reject that. So it depends on the company. Typically, it happens in large company because large companies are in the market for a very long time.
Tal, thank you for your presentation. Actually, it's a very great job and very interesting for me personally. My question is how you motivate employees to become entrepreneurs, because they take risks for them. They and gadgets is not enough for this. What is the goal for them?
Right, great question. So actually, I spoke with a lot of employees who had a project in the past, and I asked them what motivated them to submit an idea. Because unlike startups, they don't get, let's say the project becomes successful and the company gets revenues, they don't have any equity in this idea. There's no special bonus. And they told me that, I think 90% of them told me that only the fact that they had an idea and the company took it and realized it, made it something that other customers use, for them this was the biggest reward. Now, it sounds really romantic and maybe not realistic, but that was their answer. Of course, the fact that they innovate, as I mentioned, gives them a great visibility in the company. Suddenly, a shy person from Shanghai becomes attraction because he had a great presentation in one of the hackathons, and everybody discusses about him, and maybe gets opportunities to move or being promoted in the company. And and there's the gamification that is, in my opinion, is the least significant, but still, it's a way to show some gratitude.
Okay, thank you. And other question about return of investment. How much this whole activity cost, and how much 11 successful teams earn for money?
So, yeah, question from an investor.
You invest in this team other way, not directly by money, but by budget, and you spend money for all teams, for this activity, for you personally, and after this company trying to buy money back, trying to earn money, and how successful it's for your company.
Yeah. So if you try to make a calculation, let's say you have 10 teams, 3 employees in each team, 30 employees in each cycle. Each one of them gets 10% of their time. If you do the calculation, I did it, you reach to about 2 man-months for the entire 30 each cycle. So for a big company like HP, it's nothing. The risk is very, very low. Specifically to the seed stage, as I said, they don't get actual money. The money is, let's say, instead of working on their project, someone else has to fund their salary, to pay their salary while they are innovating. So this is all done internally in the company. But basically, if, for example, if I have a security project and I reach to the seed stage, normally it will be the security business unit that funds my activity.
Tal, thank you for your talks. It was very interesting.
Thank you.
My name is Maxim. I'm from Yandex. If we could we return to the funnel slide with numbers? You have 110 teams or ideas on incubation. Have you some statistic how many teams or ideas leave out HP?
Out of incubation?
Yes, and grows outdoor.
What do you mean outdoor?
Out of HP. No.
Oh, leave the company?
Yes, leave the company and grows out.
I know lot of startup companies who came out of HP, specifically in Israel. It's the ADM, the testing division, what was previously Mercury Interactive. I'm not familiar with what happens in other divisions, but I know that there are employees who left the Israeli division and using their know-how open startups. I don't know if any of them had an incubation project in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Tal. I have a question. How do you evaluate in HP? How do you evaluate whether some specific innovation was successful or not? I mean, innovation can be not necessarily big solution. It can be, for example, small step that improves some internal process. For example, communication between departments in company. And the question is, maybe you're doing A/B testing, maybe collecting feedbacks after project, innovation project. The question is, how do you realize whether idea works or not?
Okay, so first of all, during the incubation and seed stage, since we don't build a real product, we don't have statistics if the real product is going to be successful. There are theoretical cases that a project that reached the growth stage, but when it was realized, it failed. There is a possible statistics. Usually it doesn't happen. But you talk about internal process, right? So we defined that the meaning of innovation in the company is a project that is going to help the company reach new markets and potentially will cause the company to get more revenues. That was the definition of innovation. So in the cases where employees suggested internal processes, sometime if the idea was good, we let them go through this funnel. Their customers were only internal customers, not external customers. But we helped them progress, but didn't give them much attention because of our definition of innovation. If the idea was good, we help them and help them go through the entire process. But since the definition was that we wish the company to get more revenues or new markets, then our focus was on other projects.